All right, let's start. So hi everyone, my name is Jenny. I'm co-president of the GENup Torrance chapter. To give you all a little rundown of what GENup is, we're a student-driven activist organization working to advocate for education, all through youth movements. So all of our members on the statewide and on the city level are high school students, which is awesome. We love seeing young people civically engaged. And today we have with us in our webinar, Dr. Tim Stowe, Deputy Superintendent of Torrance Unified School District, and next in line for the position of Superintendent. Thank you, Dr. Stowe, for being here with us.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and we now will move into introducing a couple of our board members, if Lauren would like to start.
Hi everyone, my name is Lauren. I go to West High. I'm a junior and I am the Director of Operations for GENup.
Hi, I'm Grace. I'm an 11th grader with Inspire Charter Schools and I'm one of the directors of organizing.
Hi, I'm Hannah. I'm a sophomore at Torrance High and I'm the second director of organizing with Grace.
You say Torrance High?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello everybody, I'm Haskell MacDonald. I go to North High School and I'm in 11th grade and I'm the political director for our GENup chapter Torrance.
Hello everybody, my name is Raj Allah. I'm a sophomore at West High School and I'm the director of student and school board relations.
All right, and I'm Luke Antaki. I'm a junior at South Torrance High School and I am the co-president of the Torrance chapter of GENup. So again, thank you, Dr. Stowe, for being here. It's a pleasure. Before we get into the board-led Q&A, we have some more kind of preliminary questions. And I guess we'll start with the easy one, the introduction. If you want to give like a short little rundown of who you are, what your position is, and kind of what your jurisdiction is and the area that you have power.
Sure. Well, just about me, I tell people that the only blemish on my record is that I was born in Redondo Beach, in a hospital that was closer to my house near West High than Little Company was at the time. But ever since I was being born, I was raised in Torrance, lived here my whole life. Went away to college for 4 years at the University of Redlands, and then came back and began teaching and coaching at West High, or coached at West High, but I taught at North High and Magruder Middle School, and then got my master's degree in school counseling, became, and also my school administrative credential. Really just fell into leadership positions early. As I now look back at my beginnings in school and other things that I was involved in, just kind of see that I always was involved in leadership, whether that was captain of teams. I was the boys state representative from West High School when I was a student there. Different clubs and college, was able to be a part of some service organizations and start some programs there. So I've always taken an interest in leadership, and so when the opportunity presented itself for me to go to Richardson Middle School as the assistant principal, shortly after the year started, I jumped at that, and then ended up 2 years later as the principal at Hull Middle School, which is in Central Torrance, and then I was there for 4 years as principal. And in the old Hull, the new school is not what I worked at, and then I went to West High School as the principal for 3 years. Prior to coming down here to the district office, where I've been for now 13, which is kind of crazy to think of. I have an older daughter who graduated from West High in 2014. She went through Towers, Bertlin, and West. I went through Victor, Bertlin, and West. And then I currently have a daughter at South High and a son at Richardson. So, I've either worked at, been a parent at, or gone to 13 of the 30 schools in Torrance, and so I really consider myself a hometown kid. I grew up playing soccer and baseball and park and rec basketball. My summer jobs were working at the Torrance Parks, and you know, coaching and refereeing youth basketball. And so really being part of this community has meant a lot to me. And that's, I've continued to want to stay and want to work here and want to serve the community. And I'm thankful that I'm going to get that opportunity in this new role. So I went through, that's my work history at the site level. At the district office, I was the senior director for secondary schools. So I oversaw all the programs and academics and operations within the 13 secondary schools we have, the middle and high schools. And then I became the chief academic officer. So I oversaw all of the academics and student services and special education programs for all of our schools. And then for the last 4 years have been deputy superintendent. And in my role, I oversee all of the non-instructional operations. So budget, facilities, nutrition services, human resources, payroll, maintenance and operations. So all the bond construction work that we've done, that's all work that I'm involved in. And so there really isn't much that I haven't been able to touch in the district and be a part of, and that's I think really helped round out me as an individual and a professional to be able to really understand from both the site level, the district level, as a parent, all of those different aspects of the community that I call home.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like you've been working at this for a very long time, like from the get-go. So could you talk a little bit about how you got into public service and education, and what kind of role it played when you were growing up, when you were in school, and things like that?
Well, it's kind of funny. So my second grade teacher, when I became the principal at Hull Middle School, my second grade teacher was the principal at Adams Elementary, which Adams is one of the feeders for Hull. And we did a lot of work together, and I would go, one of the things that I would do on an annual basis or multiple times a year to the elementary schools, I'd go talk to the students, I'd shoot baskets with them at lunchtime. I wanted them to know that coming to middle school wasn't this big scary thing, and so to develop those relationships with families, you know, at my feeder schools. And she told me that she remembers when I was in second grade that anytime there was a new student to school, that I was always the one that went and sought them out and had them come play with us at recess and just kind of befriended them. And I of course don't remember that. It's just what I did. And so I'll never forget her kind of telling me that story as in my 8-year-old self about things. And so I always wanted to and felt that you know, I come from a family of teachers. My dad was an engineer by trade, but he was also a pilot in the Navy and a flight instructor. He taught me and my brother to fly little airplanes. He was also a conductor of orchestras. My mom was trained as a music teacher at the University of Michigan. My older siblings, one who went on to be a pilot himself in the Navy and flew jets, was an instructor at the Top Gun down in Miramar in San Diego. So he's kind of in the education field. And then my 2 older siblings are college professors. And so I'm 9 years younger than them. So it was kind of always ingrained in me that you serve your community. And my mom was always on the PTA, and she was on the board of AYSO and other youth sports things. And so they were just involved in things. And that was kind of the model that I had growing up. And you know, I never really thought about it much. But then when I got into high school and had some experiences in sports, I thought, you know what, I want to be a basketball coach. And so naturally you just kind of think, oh, coaching, teaching, working at the high school level. I really liked high school. It was such a great experience for me. And I wanted to have that be a great experience for other students. And so when I went away to college, I thought I kind of lost that path. I see, I'm gonna go business, right? Because you're gonna make a lot of money, and stock market. I was really interested in that, and but after my first accounting class, realized, this isn't for me. So I switched my major to history because I could finish the quickest with that. And so graduated in 3 years. I spent a semester traveling Europe and Asia in my fourth year of college. I came back and then got my teaching credential in that last semester. And so and came back to Torrance and started teaching. So I don't know if I ever consciously said, I'm going to do this, but it was just something that I was always drawn to, and my parents modeled that you give your time to others, and you it gets paid back to you, and that's been my experience all along.
All right, awesome, thank you. And lastly, before we get to the board-led Q&A session, can you just speak a little bit specifically to some of your goals as far as education goes, and some things you've accomplished, and how you work to promote education equality?
You mean like equity around education?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So when you there's a lot of, I mean, and Tammy's here, and we've been talking about goals and what is it that we want to accomplish as a district. There's a few things that really point that I think of that are special times for me. And one was when I was a brand new teacher at Magruder Middle School. There was I took over a class in February that was kind of out of control. The teacher had left. He hadn't been there very often to begin with, and students were literally, it was February, and they were in chapter 1 or 2 of their books, and it was multiple subject, 6th grade class that I took over. And my mom always told me, she said, you have to take kids from where they are. You can't expect them to be where they aren't, and you have to find where they are and move them along. And I had one student that, a number of students come to mind, but specifically in math. So there was one boy that I noticed that his name was Kendall, and he was 6th grade, and I could tell he had special talents in math. And so I had developed all these customized assignments for the students in that class, and ultimately, long story short, recognized that Kendall had these skills, built a program for him. He was able to achieve it, and then advocated for him to be able to go into algebra as a 7th grader, and then geometry as a 9th grader, or excuse me, as an 8th grader. And I remember him coming back to me. His parents were so grateful. And then I remember him coming back to me once he was in high school, and I was still at Magruder in a different grade level, but just thanked me for taking the time and pushing him on that path, because he was able to, by his senior year, have taken calculus and been at the top level math achievement. And if it hadn't been for me being able to kind of give him those opportunities in 6th grade, he would have been on a path that wasn't right for him, and maybe gotten frustrated and not been successful. I don't know. And so, I mean, that's an indicator of what we want every kid to be able to do, right? And it was in a time when standards weren't necessary. We didn't have the math standards. We didn't have some of the other expectations that we do today. But we also need to recognize that we need to find students where they're at and push them as hard as they can be pushed, supporting them, social emotional learning, as well as the academics, to be able to help them be their best selves. So kind of thinking about equity, funding is always an issue, right? There's a lot of research on this. And so really falls into kind of 4 buckets: funding and you know, high-level curriculum. So I'll get into funding a little bit, but you know, curriculum. When I think about curriculum, I think of a story when I was principal at West High School, and the school board made a decision to eliminate barriers for kids in honors and AP courses. Before that, there had been prerequisites, and they established an open access policy for honors and AP. And it was hard. Not everybody agreed with it. There were a lot of teachers and you know, that felt we need to have you know, these you know, there are barriers in place for kids, and by letting any student select any class, that there was a feeling that it was going to result in AP scores going down and more students not doing well. Well, the opposite happened, and we went through a process here, all 4 schools in Torrance, and we removed those obstacles and those prerequisites, and allowed students to take an honors course or an AP course. And the AP course numbers of students who enrolled significantly increased, and the pass rate increased, which was counterintuitive. But what it really showed me, and it showed all of us, that when you allow students to select and push themselves, they rise to the occasion. And so those are 2 things that really, when I think of equity, those are 2 personal stories that I think of around you know, giving students the right opportunities to be able to achieve, and that they'll you know, that they'll rise to that and make that happen. So, you know, we got funding, curriculum, you know, teachers, obviously having high quality teachers, and then work around, there's a lot of work around discipline, and you know, we don't have so much of it a problem here, but in some schools, and it's part of the California dashboard, that we are assessed and rated based on our suspension rate, and so and chronic absenteeism. So if students aren't coming to school, or they're out of school for disciplinary purposes, what are we doing to help them be there? Because there's something else going on, and we have to dig, and we have to find out what that is in order for us to be able to support them and get them to where they want to be.
All right, all good answers. Thank you very much. Now we can move to the board-led Q&A section. Haskell, you want to kick it off?
Yeah, thank you, Luke. Once again, I'd like to thank you, Dr. Stowe, for being here with us today. And so to kick it off with our first question, what do you see as some of the main issues of public education as it stands in California? And what are your plans to fix these issues in our community as the next superintendent?
Well, I don't know that I can speak for the whole state. We're going through some unprecedented times here. But when I think of, you know, critical issues in education, I've been reading a little bit about, you know, policy, in the history of education policy in the United States and California, thinking about that. And yeah, so there's a lot of things that go back to, you know, that were set in place many years ago. You know, for example, I was reading a quote last night of, my wife teaches at USC, and she was going through some materials, and we read this quote from that talked about, and I wish I would have brought it for today. I didn't even think of it, but it talked about how we need to, how there are underserved communities, and how not everyone has access to high quality education. And you could have read that and thought, as we did, you can put this out in the newspaper or in a journal today, and you think it's talking about today. But it was actually written in 1965 When the Elementary and Secondary Education Act was passed by Congress, which began the title programs. So Title I, where we have some schools that are Title I schools, so they get extra funding. We get extra funding from the federal government for students who are low income. The way the funding system is set up in California now, schools get additional dollars for students who are low income, English learners, or foster youth. And so, you know, you've got some of those systems in place that that allow us the opportunity to provide additional services for students. But I think when we think of education and how we're doing, before we talk about main issues, I think we need to really talk about the successes. If you look at the graduation rates, college readiness rates, attendance, math and science scores, you know, that's kind of on the academic side, right? In Torrance, we're well above the average in the state and the county. And in fact, we have one of the highest attendance rates and grad rates in the state. There's a lot of work that goes into that. And a lot of families, you know, think, oh, you know, you're going to graduate from high school. You're going to college. It's not if you're going, it's where. But we need to also remember there's a lot of families that this is their, whether they moved to Torrance from another country or you know, moved here at some other time, that college going is not we have a lot of families who they're students who graduate and go to college, and they're the first in the family to go to college. And so we need to make sure that we continue to encourage that and look at that. I think another thing to celebrate is all of the opportunities that kids have. And, you know, whether that's band or sports or drama, different extracurriculars, opportunities to be part of, you know, ASBs or clubs, or, you know, start an organization like GENup. You know, these kinds of things are very special and unique, and they'll continue, right? And so we need to look at not from a deficit model of what we don't have. Let's look at what we do have. Here in Torrance, we also have, you know, we've invested with community dollars, the bond dollars, over $500 million into our new facilities. We've upgraded every school. We've got new auditoriums at our high schools. We have an aquatic center that you know cost almost $20 million to build, shared by all of our schools. Our middle schools have gyms now. We've got two of those left that we're completing. Elementary schools have new science labs, and you know, we've renovated. We put up new fencing and security. You know, security systems for all of our schools to keep people safe. And so, I mean, there's a lot of really, really good stuff. But yet challenges exist, right? We have still gaps. When we dig into our data, we have gaps of achievement between students based on their ethnicity and gender, and we have to address those things. Every district does. The social emotional learning, it has been, and mental health has been kind of on the forefront of a lot of things in the last few years, and this whole COVID-19 situation has further exacerbated that and put us in a situation where we even, you know, need to reach out more, and it's harder because people aren't there to reach out to, and the distancing has had an effect. And so you know, making sure that we're providing the support services to develop the whole child, and not just, you know, hammering on academics, but there's a lot more to it for kids to be able to connect to their peers or adults or get other supports. Well, let me see. So funding is also an issue. You know, before COVID-19, California is in the bottom 10 of the 50 states in per pupil funding. We have a funding model that was changed a few years ago by Governor Brown, but still doesn't get us to a level of funding anywhere near the top half of states in the union. And when we have expensive programs, and we have some programs for, I mentioned the low income and English learners, and those students we know that cost more to educate. There's more services we want to and need to provide in order for them to have the opportunities that other students do. We also have special education students with disabilities that some of whom are it costs a lot of money to serve these students, and there's a federal law, the Individuals with Disabilities Act, that was passed in the 70s, early 70s, that mandated that school districts provide a free, appropriate public education to students with disabilities. Absolutely the right thing to do. But the federal government also promised at that time to pay for 40% of districts' cost. And the last time I checked, we were getting maybe 8 to 12% of the cost of those students from that federal law. So I could point to a few other things like that are either state or federal mandates that we have to do, but they're not funded for us to be able to do those. And so that creates some challenges for all districts. Oh, so I guess the other part of your question is what I'm going to do here in Torrance. We're looking at all these things, right? We're looking at how do we best serve students, and we utilize the data that we receive. We have teachers that give regular assessments. We have instituted the PLC process, which is the professional learning community process. So that's what, when you have late starts or at the elementary, the early outs, that's what teachers are doing on those days. They're meeting in teams, collaborative teams, looking at student achievement data, talking about how to be better at their craft, how to improve instruction, improve the assessments that we're giving, better support certain students that need it. And so, it's my thing is we need to be continually improving and continually learning. We're all learners at this, and there's never a time when we can't get better. And so we will continue to do that. We'll get through this COVID-19, and we're gonna do everything we can to keep the learning happening at a high level for all students. And like I said earlier, I see it personally, right? So I see my daughter and doing the work and in those courses, and so we want that for all kids. So we'll just continue to gather data and look at what we're doing so that we can make sure that we're providing the best experience for everyone.
You touched on this a little bit, but what specific problems have been created by the COVID-19 pandemic for students? And do you think online schooling is effective?
Well, you could probably tell me better about the problems that this has created for you. Maybe you can share some of those with me later, and I can learn from your perspective, because that's part of what I'd like to do here as well. But I mean, I think our whole community really came together. I was delivering something to a friend who teaches in another school district the other day, but who has kids in Torrance, and she was saying just what a great job that our teachers have done and our schools have done on communicating, and compared to where she works. And I've heard that story a lot from parents who either work or have friends that are in other districts, that in particular the Torrance Unified School District folks have really come together. We had, and it's not just classroom teachers that are working on this. There's a lot of support from administrators and classified staff, parents. I mean, especially at the elementary, middle school, or, just having to kind of be the at-home teacher for their students is tough. And so, some of you might have little siblings that you're having to help out too. We've served over 200,000 meals. By the end of this week, we'll have served over 200,000 meals to students since the shutdown in March. And that's a huge number, where it's about 20,000 a week of people that are coming through and we're serving meals to, and we'll continue to do that through the summer. So that's been something that's been really positive that's come out of this, and it's an indication of people working together to get things done, and the custodians and our guys in maintenance operation, and just really being out at the sites to clean and create safe spaces for people when students and staff come back. But is there room for improvement? Absolutely. When we talk about equity, I mentioned that this further exposes those students that maybe don't have access to technology or don't have reliable internet. We provided over 100 hotspots for families with no Wi-Fi access. We've reached out and helped provide whatever devices necessary. We've delivered probably 4,000 to 5,000 Chromebooks. I'm not sure the final number, but quite a few to families that need it. And so at least we can get that so those students can continue to learn. What's going to create bigger challenges moving forward is, and not to mention the class of 2020, those that are graduating, and the imposition that's created, and I mean, it's unfortunate. I hope these students will look back and in 10 years, 20 years, and when they're at reunions or talking to their kids, to say, I remember when I was supposed to graduate high school, and how lucky you have it that you're able to do something. I mean, I hope they can reflect on this in later years with some perspective. But it's tough. I mean, it's not what anybody wanted them to go through, and their families, not to be able to celebrate this achievement the way that we traditionally have done it. And so I know that's been quite the challenge. But as we move forward and we kind of think about what we're up against, in the state of California, we've got this tax system where 77% of state revenues, most of our funding comes from the state. And so when 77% of the state revenue is personal income tax, sales tax, and corporate tax, and people are losing their jobs and not buying stuff, and corporations aren't making money, that creates a significant problem. So budget-wise, in the next, for the year 2021 that's coming up, it's going to be very challenging. And we're in the process right now of analyzing what kinds of cuts and reductions are we going to have to make in order to balance the budget for next year. And then the projection for the year after is even worse, because it takes time. Once if we're so reliant on these the top earners in the state, that on the personal income tax side, that when that takes a hit, we are going to have to significantly reduce budgets. So for the coming year, it's about 8% reduction, but we're estimating it's going to be more than that for the following years. And so that's going to be definitely a challenge that we're going to have to work through. Also, the additional requirements to reopen. So the personal protective equipment that we might need to purchase for people. What are classrooms going to look like? What the structure? How many students can you put in a class if we are allowed to physically return safely? Other facility kinds of issues. When we talk about online schooling, I think most people did a pretty good job of it up to now. But we know we need to do better at that, and we're learning, and we're continuing to work on that. We had our first planning meeting yesterday with a task force to look at the guidelines from the County Office of Education that was that came out on how do we safely reopen school if given those opportunities. We have a survey that went out to parents today. Some of you may have already seen it, asking whether or not you'd be interested in coming back to school full time, or regardless of any safety protections, if you would continue to want to learn online. We will have multiple options for families. I mean, it's forced teachers and administrators to jump into this distance learning, and there's some really good examples. But like I said, we're continuing to look at it. Did you ask about the grading system as well?
No, but we would love to hear what your opinion is on that.
Oh, okay. I think that we actually did a pretty nice job with the grading system. The direction from the state was about the no harm grading, and we really took time working with the Torrance Teachers Association. We got input from parents and our principals at the sites on what kinds of system we want to put in place, and how do we comply with this hold harmless idea, but yet also recognize that there are students that want grades, and if we just established, I'm aware of some other districts that said everything for the second semester is going to be credit, no credit, and that I don't think that would have gone over well, because we do. I mean, that's an option that students can choose, but we also know that students want to have, whether they're working towards straight A's or even they feel that a B would, if it said pass, then people are just going to think, well, that was just a C, So I think that the grading issue, the way we collaborated with different groups and were thoughtful about it and didn't roll it out too quickly, it gave us an opportunity to get some feedback. So I think that in the long run, that's going to be a good system.
So the next question we had was, what do you think students can do during this time to stay politically active and civically engaged in their communities? And this is in communities not just in Torrance, but all over the state.
Well, I would say, one, be aware of what's happening. Read newspapers, or look online at things and ask questions and just be aware. But then do what you want to do, and not what you think someone else wants you to do. I've seen too many students over the years try to pad resumes, for college or for other reasons. People that had no interest working in the medical field go and volunteer at hospitals just because they think it might look good on a resume. If you want to work with people, go work with the kinds of people that you think you want to work with, right? Whether that's kids or volunteer to do something through community agencies. There's so many organizations in this town that one can pursue. Just really working to find your passion, and the cool thing in volunteering, because the cool thing about volunteering is you can quit, right? So if a job, you get trained, you do all this stuff, and then you realize, gosh, I really don't like this. Well, it's harder to walk away and when someone else has invested time to maybe train you. But you can volunteer and do certain things and realize, you know what, not for me. I'm going to go a different path. So I would say try to find whatever that passion is to serve others, and there whether it's in Scouts. Some kids are into Scouts, or you might have a sibling that's on a soccer team, and you know, that maybe you help coach that, or you know, be involved in the different clubs that are on campus. You know, Key Club is really big at some schools. CSF or some of these other organizations have requirements for community service. But I know students that don't do that. They find soup kitchens and they do things there. Or you know, I remember volunteering once in college. A friend of mine and I, every Wednesday night, we would drive to downtown LA from Redlands, which is about an hour, and we'd volunteer at the soup kitchen in downtown LA. And it was great just to get away from the city where we live, but to be able to just have this experience. And we did it because it was a requirement as part of a class, the sociology class that we did. But we continued to do it the next year because it was so fulfilling, and it was you know, such a rich experience for us. So, you know, I just try stuff and see what excites you, and like I said earlier, you know, giving back is something that you will likely get more from than others get from you.
Last question. What do you like about Torrance specifically? Does the school district have a special meaning to you?
Well, I think I mentioned earlier in depth, just, you know, my roots are here, and you know, having gone here K-12 and then worked here now, gosh, 27 years, that this it's a special place. And as I've gone into this new position, well, not yet, because it's not till July 1st, but kind of for the last 6 weeks since the board you know, made the decision to put me in there, I've been having a lot of conversations with people, and I'll continue to do that throughout the summer. And I ask 3 questions. I ask, what do you love about Torrance, the school district? What do you love about school district? What is it that you think we could do better? And if you could tweak one thing, what would it be and why? And the first question of what do you love about the school district, probably, well, I want to say 9 out of 10. Usually people have trouble giving me one thing. So it's usually 2 or 3. But one of the top 2 or 3 things that, if not the top, that people talk about is the people. And you know, it's the teachers, it's the classified staff, that people truly care about the work that we're doing in this community. The families that are supportive, you know, the students. You know, I loved when I was assistant principal and principal at the site level. I was out front school half an hour before school started, and half an hour after, because for, you know, to say hi to the students as you came and went to school. And you know, it was just, that was a very special time for me, because and you all are great. I mean, you probably do the same when you see the administrators or teachers. You talk to them, you engage with them, and hopefully they engage with you, because that's what we're here for. And I loved that time. So, you know, if I was to say what's the one thing that I really love about this district, it's the people, and that they truly care about the work that we're doing. It's not just work, it's meaningful work, and that's important.
That's fantastic. That's so awesome to hear. Okay. Now we are going to be moving into our open Q&A. Thank you, Dr. Stowe, for answering our board members' questions. Now we're going to be taking questions from the audience. How this is going to work is that there is a function where you can raise your hand. So if you have a question to ask, please raise your hand. I will call on you, and then from there you can unmute yourself and then ask Dr. Stowe your question. Hopefully, I'm sure he has an answer for you. And if you're confused as to where the raise hand function is, that is on the computer, you click participants, and then there should be a button to raise your hand. On mobile devices, there are 3 dots in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and you can click that to raise your hand. All right. So our first question is going to come from Lauren.
Hi. Okay, so I know you briefly kind of touched upon it, but my question was, to you, what is the most rewarding part of your job?
What I like systems, and I like to put things in place that help people do their job more efficiently. As I was when I was a principal, I was given a book, and it was, if you don't feed the teachers, they eat the students. And it went right to what I believed in. And if we don't do everything we can to make sure that teachers are their best each and every day, then they can't be the best for the students in their class. And so whatever I can do, and in each of the positions I've really tried to do that, is to remove barriers, to put systems and things in place to be able to allow whatever it needs to be to get to the classroom level. So, you know, one example might be in my current role. A few years ago, we totally revamped our purchasing department. This is the department that's responsible. So if a school requests instructional supplies, or, you know, pig hearts to dissect, or you know, TVs to be mounted in classrooms, you know, my goal was to try to get whatever needed to be done, get it to the schools in the most efficient way possible, in the cheapest way possible. And so to maximize those resources at the school level. And so really trying to think about how can we help everybody be their best. And you know what, and you know, now being here, it's not just teachers, it's principals, it's APs, it's supporting all of those systems that ultimately hopefully affect you in a positive way. And if we're not putting things in place that allow that to happen, then we're getting in the way of education, and that's not what we're all about. So so that's kind of what I like to do. I mean, I like to engage with people, and like stuff like this is awesome. You know, to be able to talk to groups, and you know, there aren't too many Zoom calls that I look forward to. This is one. But so just engaging with people. I mean, I have a list of folks that I'm going to pick up the phone and call over the course of the next, you know, 4 weeks, and ask them those 3 questions. Parents and teachers. I'm dropping into every faculty meeting for all of the schools in the next 2 weeks before school's dismissed, just to you know, say hi, and to offer my support of you know, me moving into this new role of how I can help people be better, and what is it that they need. So so that's what I get the most satisfaction out of. Is it always is it always right? Nope. And again, I see it on the other side when my kids have a certain experience. You know, last fall, so we have, with our school bond funds, we get $5 million every 5 years to refresh technology. So the money specifically designated for technology, and we designate most of it for student technology. So my son came home from school the other day, or not the other day, but it was like back in October, and he was complaining about these old Chromebooks. Well, we had set that we were going to buy Chromebooks in February because that was the timeline. And so he's complaining about these Chromebooks and the keys popping off, and it was the old silver ones. You guys probably remember them. And I thought, you know what? That situation is probably not unique. And so I called a few schools, and then we decided, you know what? Let's buy them now, because we were able to get an order in right before the holidays in December, and thank goodness that we did, because we were able to get all of these brand new Chromebooks delivered to schools right as we you know, came back from the holidays in January, February, and then this whole pandemic happened. And so You know, I thought, well, that's pretty good. I need to get student level feedback more often than just in my household. So I'm going to do that in this position. I'm going to reach out to ASBs. I'm going to try to set up some meetings with kids to, you know, get their perspective on what their experience is like, because what better way to learn if we're doing a good job or not than to get some ideas from the student perspective.
Fantastic. That's really interesting to hear. Personally, those Chromebooks, those new ones that you helped us get, are personally one of my favorite things you've done. So our next question is going to come from Gavin. Gavin, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, so earlier you mentioned the title school system. To clarify, you referenced Title I schools who received a certain amount of special funding. Could you elaborate more on how this system works, like how schools receive this funding, where the money comes from, and what schools can do to participate in the system? Sure.
So you didn't introduce yourself earlier. What school do you go to?
Oh, I currently go to West High.
Oh, okay. All right. So the Elementary Secondary Education Act was established in, like I said, the mid-'60s under Lyndon Johnson to provide additional, I think it was, it was trying to think, Brown versus Board of Education and when that decision came down, but I mean, it's around the same time. And so, you know, to provide funding for schools that, and you know, directly targeted to students who were low income. And so there's actually a number of title programs. There's Title I, which is for students. There's Title II, which is for teacher quality. So we receive some federal money. These are all federal programs from Washington. So we get some funds for teacher quality that is, you know, professional development and teacher support. We get Title III funds, which are for English learners. And so, but Title I specifically is based on we're funded as a school district based on the number of students we have that are on free and reduced lunch. That's the number. And then we determine as a district how we divide up that money, because if we gave every school, like let's say it's $100 per kid, it's more than 100, but let's say it's $100 per student. We have some schools where we don't have very many students that are on free and reduced lunch, and so for them to maybe get $1,000 or $2,000 doesn't really allow them to do much. So we made a decision here that a school had to have 30% or more of their students qualify for Title I, and that's how we pushed out the money. Because when we've got some state funding that we get additional, that every school, we pass through that to the schools on a per student basis. But the Title I funding specifically, we fund certain reading programs, certain intervention programs, scientific, based, research-based programs that help students in critical areas that we've designated. And so reading is by far the number one skill that students need to have, because even if you think about math problems, most math problems are actually reading problems. So if you can't read it, you're not going to be able to do the math. And so reading by the third grade at grade level is so important. And so that's one of those areas. So that's the title. The title program is it's federal money. It's based on number of students who are on free and reduced lunch. And then we divide it up based on where we feel we concentrate the dollars to make the greatest difference.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right, and we are nearing 5 o'clock, so the end of our webinar is near. I know we're all sad about that, but I believe we do have a couple more minutes, if that's okay with Dr. Stowe, to answer one more question.
Yeah, no problem.
So Ari, go ahead and ask your question.
Hello. Yeah. So as most of us probably know, the mental health issues, mostly across the country, have been on the rise. I would just like to know what are some future plans to deal with the mental health epidemic, just specifically in our district?
Yeah, it is, and it's like I mentioned, it's growing concern that you're all not here, right? You're in your own space and isolated, and that's just across the country. It's an issue. We have hired some specialists in the mental health field. I can't speak specifically to all of the actions that we're doing because our Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Crumpy, she oversees that aspect of things and what we're doing. But it is a concern. We've hired some some mental health professionals. We've collaborated with our local our local hospitals and some other agencies in the community to make sure that our counselors and site principals are aware of not just the signs, but also the supports out there. We utilize a service, and they changed their name on me. Care Solace, I think, is the name of the company. They might have changed their name, but it's actually we pay. It's a contract we have with them, and it's a resource, and it's on our district page, where if someone needs counseling or some other kind of they have services for drug and alcohol references. If people are having addiction issues or mental health or family problems, they have a lot of resources there, and that's something that Care Solace, I think, is the name of the company that we contract with. So it is a concern, and part of our work with and talking to the counselors and the site administrators during the pandemic has been, how are we reaching out to students that might need our help? And so trying to provide parents resources so that they can be aware of signs of students maybe that need some additional support. Just generally trying to get students outside, go for a walk, like stay fit, do the kinds of things that the science tells us is good for your body and good for your brain. And it's so easy to just be isolated and in front of a screen or whatever, and it's not an easy answer because I don't have all the specifics, but it is definitely an area that we're trying to actively look at and address.
Awesome. All right. Okay. So I know I said that was our last question, but yeah, I thank you, Dr. Stowe. I just got notice from our board member Grace that she has a follow-up question to Aries' question. So go ahead, Grace.
I used to go to South. I went there for 2 years, and then I transferred to an online school. But I don't know because I haven't been there for a while. But are these mental health options, have they been there for a long time, or are they up and coming because of the coronavirus?
No, it's been the last few years. Not because of the virus. Things have been in place for a while. We actually have across the street here, we've got our coordinator for family services, I think is her title, and she works with all the counselors and parents and provides outreach services. But Grace, it's been the last, I want to say, 3 years that we've started to ramp up these kinds of things.
Awesome, thank you.
In response to what the need is out there.
Yeah, I can definitely say that it is needed. I stopped going to South because I had severe mental health issues, and at that time I didn't feel like the services were there. So it's good to hear that they're there now.
Yeah, we'd love to get you back if we could.
Yeah, that's as Grace said, it's really great to hear that more and more services are being implemented. So Dr. Stowe, thank you for that. And unfortunately, that's all the time we have here today. Again, I'd like to thank Dr. Stowe for being here. I know you're very busy, especially with your new position being upcoming. But thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be with us. I'd also like to thank all of our audience members for joining us here today. It really is, it means a lot to us that people are being active with their organization. Hopefully, in the future, we'll grow and have more great events like this. And with that, I'll hand it off to Luke.
Yeah, again, I just want to say thank you to our guests and thank you to the audience. One quick thing, I don't know how many of you guys in the audience have displayed interest in the Torrance chapter of GENup, but if you guys want to, or if you guys are interested in being student ambassador, we have the link in the Instagram bio. We would love to obviously expand the chapter as much as possible. And if you guys are here, obviously you're passionate about it, so we'd really love to have you. Other than that, I think we can end it there. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Can I say a couple more things?
Yeah, go for it.
So I thought of one other story. You mentioned the grassroots, and it came to mind. So we had, I think this was last year. We at our school cafeterias, we used to put those packets of the spork and the straw and the napkin, and all wrapped in plastic, right? So we had a teacher at one of our schools and some students that were it was a middle school, that were part of like the environmental club at that school. And they asked, why do we do, like, there's so much waste in this thing. And we thought, oh, okay, let's look at it. So we worked with the nutrition services department and found out, you know what, yeah, you're right, let's do something else. And so we piloted it at a few schools, and now we don't have those things anymore. There's dispensers with, forks and knives and stuff like that. So, I mean, those are the little things that came from probably some students in a club wondering, why do we do the things the way we do? And I want to encourage all of you to continue to look critically at our district, or at whatever else you do, because your voice is so important. And what, by staying inquisitive and asking questions and wondering why certain things are the way they are, will allow, and asking those questions to the right people will allow you to get answers. It doesn't, in going about it the right way, right? Not bashing someone, but just asking for clarification. Why do we do this? How can I be part of the solution? Because when you approach things like that, which it kind of sounds like you all are, and what this organization is about, it's about making life better for people and the entire world, right? And so finding, whether it's environmental or science or policy or whatever that passion is that you have, that continue to ask questions, continue to learn, continue to just see how you can tweak things to make it better, is gonna, because if you're asking the same question and then you do something about it, other people are asking the same question, but they're not doing anything about it. They're complaining about it. And so, it's really inspiring to see what you're doing. And I want to encourage you to continue to be involved and do the good work, because we're only going to be as successful as, if we all work together on this. So thanks, Luke.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Stowe. I absolutely agree. And, that's why we're here today. As Dr. Stowe said, our organization is to get students involved with these processes that affect our educational community. And with that, I think that's all that we have for you today. Have a great day, guys. And you can be on your way. Thank you so much again, Dr. Stowe, for being with us.
Thanks. Okay, bye.